Hey guys.
Your first question is from AJ, Awesome.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's good to, yeah, that's great. I'm glad to hear the first question. How are you?
Good.
Great, thank you for watching the show.
It was very fun.
Thank you, AJ. I'm sorry about some of the language.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you enjoyed it. Did you like the show?
Yes.
Good. What's your question?
If you do cash in the poker chip, or do you just do a match? I mean, if you do cash in the poker chip, what are the rules for cashing it in?
Well, you're going to be the person to break the news. I want to make sure AJ Awesome Show gets the credit for breaking the news that we're announcing here for the first time that it's going to be Jon Moxley versus Brian Cage at Fyter Fest. And this week on Dynamite, you're going to get all the details about Fyter Fest. But Mox will defend the title against Brian Cage at Fyter Fest. Brian Cage, of course, debuted tonight and won the match with Taz. And so that was the surprise, and you're the first person to ask it, so you get to break the story that the winner of the casino ladder match at Double or Nothing receives a title shot at Fyter Fest. Thanks, AJ.
Thanks. The next question is from Joe from the New York Post.
Hi, Joe.
Hi, Tony. How's it going?
Very well, thank you.
Obviously, we're a year into AEW now. With some of the new faces and obviously the bigger guys that you have now in Cage and Archer and Brody Lee, does this feel like a little bit of a different roster? And what's the challenge of bringing in three big guys kind of in a very small window of time here?
There's a lot of, I could go on for a long time, so I'll try to go on for a medium amount of time to answer your question. They're all really important guys, and they're all really important stories. So you asked about Brody, Lance, and did you ask about and Cage? Is that Brody, Archer, and Cage? Are those the three you asked about? Sorry, did Joe get muted? Sorry. Yeah, anyway, they've all been really important to us. In different stories. They bring different dynamics to the roster, and I don't want to lump them in together as just big guys. I think they all are very special in their own way, and I could talk for 20 minutes about each of them. So I think, but they've all come through for us, and if you want to ask, I can gladly talk about anybody individually, including those guys. Thanks, Joe.
Next question is from Mark Raimondi from ESPN.
Hey, Mark.
Hey, Tony. Congratulations on a great show.
Thank you. I really appreciate you saying it.
I just wanted to ask you about the Stadium Stampede match. I know that it was taped yesterday, but what kind of limitations, if any, did you guys have on the field? And can you just take me through how a match with so many moving parts kind of gets laid out and shot?
It was the work like a great film, I think, of a lot of people. I'm glad you asked about the Stadium Stampede, Mark. We're all really proud of it. Everybody at AEW, we all took a hand in laying it out. It involves a lot of people's ideas, and the fact that my dad and the Jaguars organization were kind enough to provide us access to TIAA Bank Stadium to make the Stadium Stampede a signature match of ours. We all put in ideas. We all sat down. The big spots in the match, Chris, Matt and Nick, Kenny, Matt Hardy, myself, we all put multiple ideas and multiple big spots in the match, which you'll probably, I hope it is a famous match that people talk about. And I think to us, it could be a signature match to us. I hope the Stadium Stampede can be really a signature match here in AEW, and something people will always remember. And when a band puts together a song and everybody has a part in putting it together, I think that was this. And we all had a lot of fun putting it together, especially because it was the first time some of us had been together in a couple months. So it was really fun. We hadn't seen Matt and Nick, especially Nick, in over 2 months. And then obviously with Kenny and Chris and Matt Hardy, we've all been together all the time with Sammy and the Inner Circle guys. So there's a lot went into it and a lot of ideas. Chris is incredibly creative, and obviously the Bucks and Kenny, you see him being the Elite every week, and they had a lot of great stuff, and we just had a lot of fun. So I'm sure Chris is going to do a lot of podcasts talking about what went into it and the process and all the time, and a lot of people who helped, and there were so many people from the Jags organization that were very kind in helping us get it. And frankly, in this climate, I really am very grateful to everybody that came in and was a part of the show, and everybody that watched the show, because it looks like it was a very successful show. And I'm really glad to see that in this climate. I know, it's hard that not everyone has a lot of disposable income right now, and I really appreciate it. It looks like a good number of people were able to come in and support us on this one. I really appreciate that very much. Thank you. Thanks, Mark.
The next question is from Connor Casey from Comic Book.
Ooh, hey, Connor, I'm sorry. I've been interrupted by one of our casino ladder match participants. I'm sorry. By the way, I tried to explain the rules of this match like 200 times at least to Orange Cassidy, and he did not get it. And I thought you, despite the fact you didn't really understand the match, that's how good a wrestler he is, that he could have won the match. He's also a great manager. He's one of the most successful people, one of the most unlikely success stories in wrestling, I think. Somebody who's really come on. He's a very special wrestler. Thank you for coming in. I'm sorry for interrupting you. What was your question?
Yeah, what was your question? By the way, Tony, did I win the match?
No.
It's perfectly fine, and tell Orange thank you for joining us on this call. Tony, like you were talking about earlier about the Stadium Stampede, based on everything I've seen on Twitter, I think this match went over incredibly well. I'm curious, based on the kinds of matches we've seen just in wrestling in general these past few months, what are your thoughts on cinematic matches? And do you think they have a future?
I think, like everything else in wrestling, a smart man I once heard say he's smart about some things and other things he's not so smart about. But I once heard somebody who knows some really great things about wrestling, and I used to think was a great mind for wrestling. I heard him once say that nothing, when it's done great wrestling, nothing's better, and when it's done badly, nothing's worse. And I think that's true of cinematic matches too. I think if you do something great, and I hope people think the Stadium Stampede was great, I'm glad you guys have been very favorable about it, and I think that's true of cinematic matches.
How does this work?
I'm glad you're really very talkative lately, I gotta say. Can I,
yeah, the next question. Shot at Brandy.
Yeah, I heard you were Shot at Brandy, guys. It's a great show. Next question, please.
Next up is Jonathan Snowden from Bleacher Report.
Great writer. John, I want to tell you, I don't know if, did Moxley tell you, did you talk to Moxley on here, by the way? I'm curious. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut off your question, but he loved your Ken Shamrock book. He's been raving about it. Moxley put over this,
who wrote a Ken Shamrock book?
This is the guy asking the question, John Snowden.
Did he really?
He's a great writer, yeah. John, what do you got?
Get out of my way, John.
So,
Get it?
Tony, I thought this Stadium Stampede was one of the most incredible things I've ever seen.
Thank you.
One of the most dangerous stunts you guys have done was the finish, Kenny Omega's one-winged angel that was maybe a 15-foot drop. I'm wondering what kind of safety precautions went into doing that, because
it would have been very difficult if it wasn't a cinematic match to do something like that. But because of the nature of the Stadium Stampede, and we were able to do things, it's one of the silver linings of being able to do things like this and not doing everything in front of a live audience. Would have been really difficult to do something in a safe environment like that, but it was safe. But that being said, no amount of preparation and we did a lot to make it safe. But that he's still two of the greatest professional wrestlers in the world, and only two of the greatest wrestlers in the world could have pulled that off, which is true of many of the things that happened in that match, including that.
Have you guys seen Tony's guns?
Thanks.
Next question is from Dave Meltzer at Wrestling Observer.
Yes. Hi, Dave.
Hey, Tony, how you doing?
Really, really well. Really well.
Wait, this is Dave Meltzer?
This is Dave Meltzer. It is the Dave Meltzer.
I think Dave hates me.
No. That is not the case.
You learn and adapt.
That is true. That's true, which is the difference between Dave and the person I was talking about before. Thank you, Dave. What were you saying?
I haven't asked the question yet, but I was wondering, as far as like who. I really thought that a lot of the guys underneath, especially I think MJF, Jungle Boy, and Hikaru Shida really, I thought they all really elevated themselves with the show tonight. And I was just wondering what you thought as far as who are the stars of the show besides the obvious ones.
I think a lot of people stepped up in the ladder match, and we were in a really tough position from the beginning of the show, because I think in the ladder match, Phoenix was a really important wrestler and is one of the best wrestlers in the world. He doesn't want to hear that.
I don't care about that.
Yeah, he definitely does not want to hear that. But he is going to be a huge part in that match. So I think all the people in the ladder match stepped up, and including Orange Cassidy and all the participants in the ladder match. I thought, like you said, in the title matches, everyone in the title matches, I thought really stepped up. And I thought that obviously the Stadium Stampede, Sammy was amazing in the Stadium Stampede. I thought it was great to see the Young Bucks back. And Kenny's, I think Kenny's the best wrestler, bell to bell in the world. And then the Inner Circle is, to me, a great faction. And I thought this was a great night for the Inner Circle. And Sammy stepped up and did so many things. Chris is a genius. Here we go. See, the magic of this app is that I saw that coming. Otherwise, you would really knock me off. But instead, I'll go on. And so there was, and I thought Brody Lee came in and in a position where, based on, us having to do the shows all of April in a very short span, that he really stepped in too and had a great match and in a position in the card, a tricky position in the card to do the world title match. And he was great. And I hope I'm not leaving anybody out. I know it's a long-winded answer as it is, but really, and people were great. And all the people in the building that, were here, and everybody who came in and got tested and made a lot of noise, from the company and our family and friends. It was really pretty great.
All right, I think she'll leave, Tony.
You can. You shouldn't forget your sunglasses. But you've been a great help to this. And Dave, I hope that was. Who did you think, Dave? I'm sorry, I didn't say Jungle Boy and MJF, and I should have said Jungle Boy and MJF because they went out and absolutely tore the house down. Again, there were so many great things that happened on this card, and the people who went on early, like the people in the ladder match, and Brian Cage debuting, and obviously MJF and Jungle Boy just really tore the house down, and I'd be remiss if I didn't give them a ton of praise also.
Right, Dave? Yeah, that's right, Dave.
That's a long answer. Sorry, Dave.
All right, I'm out of here.
Sorry, thanks, Orange. It's great, great debut, great ladder match debut for a guy who didn't understand the rules of a ladder match.
Yeah, well, if you explained it better, I would have had a better time.
I tried my best many times. And who's next?
Next question is from Mike Johnson from Pro Wrestling Insider.
Yes.
Hey, Tony, how are you?
Good, Mike.
So you guys had a lot of curveballs thrown at you in the last couple of days in terms of injuries. How much did that change the creative trajectory of the show? And where are we with injuries? When are talents being cleared to return? Is everybody who worked tonight okay? In terms of health, obviously there's only so much you can talk about with HIPAA, but where do we stand in terms of injuries and how that changed the creative plans tonight?
Well, the people in the case who there were huge curveballs, frankly, and I'm really grateful to, obviously in the Chris Statlander and Penelope Ford match, they were both thrown out there without Britt Baker being here, and grateful to all of them. And then with Phoenix, like I mentioned earlier, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention how great Phoenix is. We did miss him, and Joey was great to come in and step in, and I asked Joey to come in, as he alluded to, and do something great. And I thought the guys went in and in a new concept that I was pretty jazzed about, that I'd kind of put together for this pay-per-view. I thought it was a cool new stipulation match, and I hope it can be a part of the pay-per-view. So with Phoenix and Britt being out, frankly, we dodged bullets on both of them. I'm really glad to say whenever there's an injury on a show, you're always terrified, and in both these cases we were really worried. And we weren't sure coming out of the show what the status of either of them was, and we would never false advertise. If it's in our power, I never want to. We didn't know until yesterday for sure what was going on. Britt will be out probably, we think, 6 weeks, maybe. I think less than 2 months, ballpark, is a good estimate. She'll be addressing her medical situation on Wednesday on Dynamite, and then we've got Phoenix, where it was close. He's not, he's limping, and I don't think he would have been able to give 100%. Also, it wouldn't have been smart to put him out there in that situation. And we made a judgment call, but I think he'll be back soon. He's been great, and I really appreciate him and everybody who's come in. And like I said, I thought on Phoenix and Britt specifically, we dodged a bullet, and it did. We were down to the wire on those, and for sure it was tricky, but we didn't have to change a ton of the show. Thankfully it was, and we were really lucky. We had great substitutes with Joey and Penelope.
Next up is Kristin Ashley from Bell to Bells.
Okay.
Hi. So I was at the AEW Heels Party yesterday, and the majority of women there, when they were polled, said they wanted to see a women's ladder match. With Shida as the new champ and a veteran of hardcore matches, are those type of matches on the deck for the women in the future?
I definitely think that's a possibility, yeah. I think we just did a ladder match tonight, and obviously one of the best matches we've ever done, was at All Out, and it had been a while since we'd done a ladder match. I think the Young Bucks versus the Lucha Brothers was one of the best matches we've ever done, and I really enjoyed the ladder match tonight. But definitely, when the time is right, I absolutely would love to do a women's ladder match. And I think we'd really have a great roster for that. And I think Kenny's got a great mind for these things, and I'd love for us to take a crack at that. I think we'd have a lot of fun with that one, putting that together and putting together a great roster of women's wrestlers. And I think we have great women's wrestlers that would have a great ladder match. So definitely. And I think Shida would be really compelling. And she's a great champion. I think her title shot's been a long time coming, and she, really came through. It was a great match. Thank you. Thanks for going to the AEW Heels thing. Thank you. I'm really learning a lot, and I can't say I'm really glad that I've heard good things about it, and people really enjoyed attending the event. And for everybody that put together, and Brandy and the team of ladies at AEW that worked on it, they worked hard on it, and I'm really glad they've gotten such a good reception to it. Thanks.
Next up is Shawn Lalo from Monsters and Critics.
Great. Hi. Hey, Shawn. Do we have Shawn muted? Do we kind of unmute Shawn?
Hello?
Hey.
Can you hear me?
I can. How are you?
Okay, perfect. It looked like my Zoom tried to cut out.
All good.
I want to talk to you about the MJF Jungle Boy match.
Great.
For a long time, I've really thought, Cody talked about old school wrestling. And it seems like MJF is an old school heel. Jungle Boy seems to be like the perfect old school baby face. These guys are 22, 23 years old. Talk a little bit about their performances, especially when they're against each other. Someone on Twitter tonight compared it to Steamboat Savage, or a young Steamboat Savage. Talk a little bit about these two guys and their future and the future of AEW in their hands.
Well, that makes me feel really good. That's literally the highest praise you can get when it comes to that kind of wrestling and that kind of rivalry. I think when you talk about rivalries and in-ring bell-to-bell wrestling, that's like exactly what you want to hear about young wrestlers, and also guys that were married to each other at various points in their careers, guys that worked together in the late 70s and Mid-Atlantic, some of the greatest stuff you'll see, and guys that worked together in the early 80s and then had reconnected in the mid-80s and then were apart and did some of the greatest stuff ever, but then reconnected in the late 80s and again in the early mid-90s. And it's like some of the best stuff you'll ever see. And if these guys are able to do that, and I think they'll both be here a long time. I think it's no secret that they're both signed here through the end of 2024. And they're really important to us. They're both really important talents for us, and I think keeping them together, as a rivalry, when you find guys like this that are, you think are young, potential main event talents, potential world champions, and they have this kind of chemistry, and they haven't wrestled a lot outside of AEW, which when they had that kind of chemistry, when they first connected here before this, it was really special, and I was shocked that they hadn't done much together. We were on live TV, and they'd only done a couple things together, and some stuff, based on where they were on the time, I told them, because I keep the times, I told them they were going to be pivoting a little bit, and they adjusted to it like total pros. And then for guys their age, I think these are probably two of the smartest, most instinctive, highest upside wrestlers in the world. So to hear you compare them to Flair and Steamboat is like music to my ears, frankly, and that makes me feel great. Thank you, and that should make Max and Jack feel great. And they're both students of wrestling in their own way, and that's awesome. Thank you. That's what we were going for, and they've done a lot of stuff together. And before the shutdown, and they were both, obviously Max on the East Coast, Jack on the West Coast. That was stuff we were going towards, if you remember. So it's good to be able to get back to it and do this like we always wanted to.
Next up is Ryan Satin from Collider.
Great. Hey, Ryan.
Hey, how's it going, Tony?
Good, man. How are you?
I am doing great, thank you. So there were rumors that Brian Cage signed with you guys back in January after becoming a free agent. Then he had to undergo surgery due to injury. Now that he's actually made his debut with you guys, can you talk about how long he's been signed to an actual deal with you guys?
That's true. Brian signed, and he was injured when he signed. And I think, frankly, I heard there were people who were like, you pay. That's crazy. You would pay this guy good money, and this whole time he's hurt, and he didn't get hurt in your company. But I really like Brian, and I really believed in him, and I had this plan for Brian, and I wanted to do this with Brian and Taz all along, and there was a method to it, and he wasn't going to be ready to go until around Double or Nothing, but I always knew Brian was going to factor in Double or Nothing, and kind of always knew he'd show up here. He's always expected to be cleared in May, and so we signed him, and he rehabbed and got ready, and he had no idea what he was coming in to do. I totally kayfabed him, but he's great, and we really believe in him, and strapped a rocket to him, you could say, and I think he's awesome. And like I said, it's going to be Mox versus Cage at Fighter Fest, and I think it's going to be awesome. And I'm really excited. We'll get you more details about Fighter Fest and all the big stuff we're going to have there. But that's the world title match, and I'm really glad that Taz and Cage were able to have that moment now finally. So that's pretty cool. Ideally, we would have been able to do it, have them come in and do something sooner. But when Brian got injured, this was always what we planned when he told me he was going to be cleared in May.
Next up is Alex McCarthy from Talk Sport.
Awesome. Hey, Alex. How are you?
Hey, Tony. How you doing, man?
Great, man. Thank you for staying up. Thanks for staying up.
Yeah, it's like 5 to 6 here, man. Don't worry.
I know, man. I'm very familiar with the time difference, as you can imagine. I haven't been. Right before Revolution, I was there at Fulham, and then of course things shut down. I haven't been able to get back since, as you can imagine. But I stay in touch with all the guys, and I miss it very much. I miss London. It's like a second home to me. And thanks for staying up. Like I said, I know how hard it is with these shows, these pay-per-view shows.
Well, it wasn't very hard with that show tonight, man.
Thanks, man. That's great to hear. Thank you. That's really kind.
Well, speaking of you coming back over here, I just wanted to touch on,
Fighter Fest. I'll be honest with you guys. I want to let you can break this one, Alex, even though you didn't even ask it. But yeah, I get credit for it. Originally, Fighter Fest, I was going to do it in London, and and we can't do it, and it's just not possible. And we had the plans, and I thought it was going to be our debut, and now you're telling the world, I'm sorry, I wanted to do it. I'm not sure when it's going to happen, but it was going to be Fighter Fest, and we would have had this great show. There's tons of huge matches we have planned, and obviously, Mox versus Cage is the first thing we've announced, and Fighter Fest was a really successful show for us, both internationally as a pay-per-view and domestically. It was very successful as a BR Live special, and it was actually one of the greatest days for customer acquisition in the history of BR Live. It was up there with the Tiger Woods Phil Mickelson golf match and some of the other big events. I think it was actually second best ever behind the Tiger Woods Phil Mickelson golf match in the history of BR Live customer acquisition. So anyway, we'll have more details about Fighter Fest and when and where and how you'll be able to watch it. And sorry, I didn't mean to jump your question, but anyway, I wanted to mention I wanted to go to England, and we were supposed to with this show that we just announced just now.
That's awesome, man. That is awesome. I mean, that's
Thanks,
funny.
Alex. Thank you, Alex. I appreciate it, man.
Whereabouts, roughly, were you was it going to be Fulham by chance, or what did you have?
I can't say it for sure, Alex. I can't say for sure. But it was gonna be awesome. I really was looking forward to doing it.
Awesome. One day.
Yeah, it'll be awesome when we can do it, and it's safe for everybody when we can do shows where you don't have to test everybody, in here that's coming back here with us.
Thank you, man.
Thank you. Great to hear from you.
Okay, the last question for Tony is from Bill Pritchard at WrestleZone.
Great.
Hey, Tony, how are you?
Great, Bill. How are you?
Good. So I wanted to follow up on the Brian Cage and Taz pairing, and just wanted to know kind of what in your mind made it a good pairing, and then on another hand, you had Vicky Guerrero in the crowd, and she's made some commentary appearances, but is she somebody else that you could see in the future having a role similar?
Well, I think it's two separate questions, right? So yeah, with Taz and Brian Cage, I love the pairing, and it's something we've wanted to do for a while. It's the idea that Brian Cage is a big free agent wrestler. He's got all the tools. He's like the guy in the draft that kills the workouts. He's got all the physical tools, and with his strength and his agility and, how impressive of a wrestler he is, like everything Taz brings to the table in terms of being able to, bring in legitimacy, being able to bring, wrestling holds and submissions and a new dimension to Brian Cage. But also, obviously, Taz is one of the greatest promos in the history of wrestling, in my opinion, in terms of what he was able to do and what he was able to get out of not being the tallest guy or the fastest guy or the strongest guy. But he had a great run and was a very successful, mainstream wrestler without, again, being over, a great height or a great speed or even the strongest, biggest guy. So I just think it's a really great pairing, and Taz is going to bring a lot of legitimacy to him, and I hope you dug the music and the Who Can Stop the Path of Cage, which is, it's a legitimate question, and we'll find out at Fighter Fest, and I think we really like Cage, and we were hyped to get him in, and Ryan asked, we'd had this plan for a while to get this going, and some of what happened with Taz and Darby, obviously, Taz was looking maybe to manage Darby, and Darby wasn't interested in any advice from Taz, and when that didn't come off in this big ladder match, instead Taz went to another plan, which is he got a bigger, stronger, and then tonight, better guy tonight. I don't know if anybody didn't get any question. I feel bad if there's anybody that didn't get a question. If there's anybody that, if we can get to, or I can try and address in the future, I don't know if there's anybody still going, Mandy, or if anything I can do, but I really appreciate everybody who stayed up and came to this. I hope everybody got their money's worth out of the pay-per-view for either themselves or their media outlet, and I don't know if there's anything else for me to do, Mandy, but this is great.
No, thank you so much, Tony, and thanks very much to everyone for joining us tonight. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we look forward to seeing you at the next one. Thanks again, and have a good night.
Thank you, guys.